In this video, we'll show you how to develop connectors for cloud data integration using the Informatica Connector Toolkit. Before you develop connectors, make sure you've downloaded and installed Eclipse IDE, the Informatica Connector Toolkit using InfaConnect, and Azul OpenJDK. Make sure that the Java Home environment variable is configured to point to Azul OpenJDK. In this video, we'll show you the 5 phases of developing a connector. Establish a connection, define the connector metadata, configure the connector's runtime behavior, generate the connector package, and finally, generate and run test scenarios. But first, let's create a connector project to define the type of connector you want to create. Open Eclipse IDE. From the Windows menu, select Perspective and open Informatica Connector. Click this icon to create a connector project. The first time you create a connector, use your Informatica Cloud credentials. In this demo, we'll develop a Shopify connector. First, we'll name the connector and give it a description. Then select the cloud service for which you want to create the connector. Shopify is a REST-based application that supports API key authentication. Click Finish. We can see the project we just created on the Connector Navigator tab. In the Connector Progress view, we can see the status of each phase as we develop the connector. Let's go to Phase 1 and create our connection to Shopify. First, we'll connect to an endpoint. When you selected an authentication type, the Informatica Connector Toolkit auto-populated some connection properties. You can add, edit, or delete properties. To connect to Shopify, we'll need the base URL, key, and value. Then we'll add the optional connection attribute shop name, enter details for the shop, and save it. Click Next. In the connection pages, add connection attributes to the sections based on how you want them to appear in the user interface. Here's an example of a connection section in Informatica Administrator. You can add, edit, or remove sections as needed. Next, we'll add the third-party libraries we need to develop the Shopify connector. Since we're required to serialize the JSON response from Shopify, we'll add the Google JSON library, an open-source Java library available online. Now let's generate the code. To view the code we generated, go to the Connector Navigator tab and double-click the Shopify Connection Java class. Then specify the object name. Let's test the connection. If you want to debug the connector, enter the JVM parameters for the virtual machine. This JVM configuration will also come in handy for debugging the next phases of connector development. Enter the connection details and test the connection. We successfully created a connection to Shopify. In Phase 2, we'll add objects and define the metadata for the Shopify connector. First, let's define the data types. Informatica Connector Toolkit auto-populates the data types and maps them to the equivalent Java data types in Informatica. You can add, edit, or delete data types. Then generate the code. Next, define the metadata for Shopify objects. The output format of the Shopify objects can be flattened or hierarchical. For the hierarchical format, you can use the Swagger-based or API-based method to generate the object metadata. In this example, we'll select the flattened output format. Next, add Shopify objects and configure the metadata. Name the object and add the sample response. You can copy the sample response from an API development tool, like Postman. Here's an example of a sample response for the products object in Postman. Paste the sample response and generate the metadata. Repeat these steps to add multiple objects. Click OK to save the objects. Next, we'll enable the connector to read data from Shopify. You can configure runtime attributes to take user inputs for the read operation at runtime. You can also edit or delete runtime attributes. For example, you can add the page size property to set the number of records the connector returns in response to each API call. Now we'll enable the connector to write data to Shopify and configure the runtime attributes for the write operation. Then, generate the code. We can see the code we generated in the Shopify Metadata Java class. Now we'll test the object metadata. As we mentioned earlier, you can use the same JVM configuration to debug all phases of the connector development. Enter the Shopify connection details. Then select the object with metadata you want to test. In Phase 3, we'll configure the Shopify connector's runtime behavior. In the Connector Progress view, click Setup to generate the runtime code. We can see the code we generated in the Shopify Object Data Java class. Now test the runtime behavior. First, test the runtime behavior for the read operation. You can also select the tracing level to set the amount of detail that appears in the logs. Enter the Shopify connection details. And then select the object you want to test. Here we enter a value for the page size attribute that we configured earlier. And run the test. Great! The read operation tested successfully. The test results show how many rows were read, and we can see a preview of the data. You can also test the runtime behavior for the write operation. Now that we're finished developing the connector, in Phase 4, we'll generate the connector package. In the Connector Progress view, click Generate Package. Enter the locations for the logo and connector package, select the connector package version, and then click Finish. The Informatica Connector Toolkit bundles the connector artifacts and generates the connector package in the location you entered. Finally, in Phase 5, we'll test the connector using the automation framework that generates test scenarios for unit and integration testing. In the Connector Progress view, generate the test scenarios. Enter the version number of the connector package you want to test, and click Finish. Make sure the connector package version is the same number you used to generate the package in Phase 4. In subsequent package updates, Informatica Connector Toolkit automatically increments the version numbers. After the test scenarios are generated, go to the Connector Navigator tab and find the Test Scenarios folder for the connection. Open the Input Properties file and provide the object name and connection details to run the test scenarios. Then run the test scenarios. Let's test the individual units of the auto-generated code. Click Finish. While the test scenarios are running, do not alter the configurations for any of the phases. After the tests run, you can view the results in Eclipse or your web browser. Let's check out our results in Eclipse. You can run similar integration tests for your connector in the Informatica Intelligent Data Management Cloud. Before you run the integration tests, use InfoConnect to deploy the Shopify connector to the sandbox environment. Also, make sure that the secure agent is up and running and that the pod and agent details are in the input properties file. And that's it. For more information, see the Informatica Connector Toolkit documentation on the Informatica documentation portal. Visit our communities and support hubs, or check out our website